Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. First up, we're at the Tau Lodge in the Madikwe Game Reserve of the Northwest Province of South Africa. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax and watch as the animals come down to quench their thirsts and cool off. And as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the WildEarth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag WildEarth as it shows on your screen. What is it that you'd like to talk about? What would you like to see? Or whatever it is wildlife related, send it on through. As we see this elephant bull just sauntering on over towards us. Is he in must? I'm not quite sure. I think it may be just because he was going a little bit downhill there. But that is the general kind of saunter that you would generally see from elephant bulls in must. But you need to see it on a regular basis, not just on a little saunter like that. But anyway, nice group of blue wildebeest as well. And of course, all the waterfowl that are resident here as well. A couple of black-winged stilts there. I can see some Egyptian geese, and as always, there'll be the blacksmith lapwings around as well. So Natal spurfowl making a bit of a racket there. Looks like a nice sunny day in this part of the country, just on the Botswana border. But I think there's a bit of mixed weather around the country. There has been quite a big system moving up the east coast from Cape Town, going into KwaZulu-Natal. It hasn't quite reached this part of the country yet. We hope that it does. We do need lots of rain there. Well, speaking of that, I think it's time to go and have a look what the weather's going to be like across all the different locations. Well, we didn't quite get all the locations, and showing a bit of clouds, as I mentioned, down at Betty's Bay along the Cape Coast. And I think there's lots of sunshine in the interior. So that was just a little tidbit. I think let's go and see what the rest of the locations are going to be like today. So a real mixed bag, and I think if we had to say across the board, we're going to have sunshine and showers. It looks like this elephant's had his drink. I wonder if he's going to wander over to where they do prefer to mud bathe on the right-hand side of this waterhole. You can hear the little blue waxbills, very high-pitched call. I think they're very close to the camera here, just in the thickets. And comments already coming in. One from Casper saying good Wednesday morning, Ralph and WildEarth from a chilly Milwaukee, ready with hot tea for warm African sights. Welcome aboard, Casper, and thanks for the lovely comment. And then from Lorraine asking and saying, welcome back, Ralph. Looking forward to what you have to show us this afternoon. Yes, Lorraine, you never can tell. That's the beauty about the bush. You never know what's going to happen next. So the elephant's still moving across, and looks like here we've got a spur-winged goose just on the bank of the water there, the largest goose of the region. A couple of zebra up off on the right as well, and really true blue skies. That little croaky call, I think, is of a chin spot batis. It's part of his call. It's not the one that he does all the time, as in the chin spot batis call, or three blind mice, as we like to call it. That's a sort of another part of his little call as well. Little croaky sound. And Gina Deacon, who's a new member, saying, good afternoon, Ralph. Good to hear from you. Thank you for being our narrator. You're very welcome, Gina, and welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us. Oh, there's another bull. Maybe they're going to go and have a bit of a chat. Even though we do need the rain in these parts, it looks like a glorious day. There's not much wind to speak of, not a ripple on the water. I'm giving it that real mirror effect. Lovely for photography and making out for a wonderful day. See this bull standing dead still as the other one approaches. He's got a very big notch in his ear. Let's see what these two get up to. Sounded like a yellow-breasted Apalus calling there now. These two bulls don't seem to be the best of friends. The one that was here with a notch in his ear didn't even turn to greet him, although they can talk without facing each other. No disrespect shown, but didn't seem to really welcome him either. And Gina Deacon also asking again, so with winter coming, have the water levels dropped much? So Gina, this is a natural waterhole, but it's also been replenished and added with a dam wall, and they do keep it replenished with underground water. So the levels of this waterhole have dropped and been replenished over the last few months that we've been watching it. So it's quite nice and full again, and I think if the levels do drop going into winter, which you would expect going into the dry season for us, and in these parts being summer rainfall, the water levels would normally drop, but with the animals being enclosed inside these national parks, they do keep the water holes permanent, a lot of them, and so they replenish them as the levels do drop. Then Asbo joining us once again. Welcome aboard, Asbo, and saying good afternoon, Ralph, from a cold and wet East Coast UK. Well, we're feeling pretty much the same on the east coast of South Africa, Asbo, and it is also, for us, around about 20, 22 degrees, which is cold, anything under 25, and we get the jerseys out. And so it's also a little bit wet too, with the humidity up at about 90%. And so I'm sure it's not the same as where you are, but greetings all the same. I don't think the temperature's the same here in on the border of Botswana. It's probably in the 30s already. We've seen this bull before with this big notch in his ear, and these quite stumpy tusks of his. Very thick, but they're obviously quite brittle as well, so they've been broken off. And Lenny1 saying, yay, Ralph, very good to see you. Well, you can hear me. You did see my face initially, but my family and friends always say that I've got a real face for radio, so maybe it's a good thing you can't. And of course, just in the foreground, you've got a common moor hen on the right-hand side and a little red-knobbed coot on the left. They're the ones with a very white face, and you actually can't really see that little red knob on the top of that very easily. But that's why they're given that name. Two very common waterfowl around southern Africa. Generally, almost at every single waterhole, you'll find these two kinds of waterfowl. Quite similar in their habits as well, but the common moor hen just being a little bit smaller, slightly different, not as bulky build as well. You see this bull also got a little bit of white in the corner of his eye, very much like the sleep that we get in the corner of our eyes. And so that's obviously just the natural way of the eye to clean itself. And obviously with the elephants walking around in the bush, there's lots of dust and there's lots of pollen from flowering plants at different times of the year. And so that's just a collection of sort of mucus that helps to clean the eye and get all the grit and dust and pollen, etc., down into that bottom corner. So you find when there's a lot more flowering plants around, that white little sort of foam is a lot more prevalent. We find in the Eastern Cape, in the Cape Floral Kingdom, when there's flowering plants all year round, the elephants generally have this all year round as well, because they're moving through those thickets and in the Albany thicket biome. And so with so much pollen, it's obviously a non-stop problem for them, and their eyes obviously helping to clean themselves. You can also see he's still got quite a good covering of mud all over his ears, over his head, over his back. It also goes to show that there hasn't probably been any rain of significance in the last little while, because that would have washed it off. We would have then had to come and replace it. Right, so a lovely start here, and in particular watching this bull just chilling out and using his slinky toy of a trunk just to move about and smell what's around him. But with that being said, I think it's time to change of place, and let's go to the Greater Kruger Park and King's Camp. with another pachyderm, but this time right up close and personal, right underneath him. I don't know if it's a him or a her just yet. So we can also see the red-billed buffalo weaver's nest off on the right there. What a lovely picture this is. So sorry about that. We'll try and sort out those technical difficulties there at King's Camp with that beautiful close-up frame of that elephant. But we're back to our guy here at Tau in the Madikwe Game Reserve. Looks like the blue Wildebeest have decided to come and join him. And a head-bobbing zebra just behind him as well. So Gina was asking a nice question, saying, can you please remind us of the lifeline of elephant teeth? And I found a lovely article, a little write-up on Siyabona, Africa, as a part of the Kruger Park. And they say with their busy feeding schedule and diet of tough vegetable matter, elephants need durable teeth. In their lifetime, elephants work their way through 6 sets of molars. And as one set wears out, another moves up from the back of the mouth to replace it, until the final set wears out and the elephant eventually will die of starvation, if not from something else, no longer able to chew up plants. And at any given time, both upper and lower jaws usually have one molar tooth in place on each side, and possibly part of another molar. Each set of elephant teeth is a slightly different size, with the 6th and final set having the most ridges crisscrossing its surface. By looking at the tooth surface and its position in the elephant's jaw, an expert would be able to age the elephant. I wouldn't know how they do it with it still being alive. But the last set of elephant molar teeth usually begins to erupt by the age of 30, and these teeth may last for as many years as the preceding 5 sets of teeth together, with elephants usually living to just over 60 years old in the wild, although a captive elephant lived to the age of 81. But that was obviously with lovely soft feed, nutritious feed that they don't really need to break down as much as wild elephants do, particularly so in winter when they need to go looking for bark and roots, because a lot of the deciduous trees will have lost their leaves and they don't flower. So the elephants need to be a bit more crafty in winter, and they also do put a lot more strain on their teeth as a result during those periods. So Kurt was asking, hi Ralph, how old do you estimate this mud bull to be? Now, Kurt, definitely an adult, fully grown. He's filled out. He's also got aging tusks. He's lost the end of his tail. So I would say that this elephant bull is sort of middle-aged, but heading towards a bit of an older age. So an older middle age, I would say. So hazarding a guess, I would say around 35 to 36 years of age, somewhere there. Between 35 and 40, if I had to make it a bigger estimate. Looks like a breeding herd has entered into the scene, and I wonder if that's why the elephant bull left. He doesn't seem to have many friends. The other bull that came past didn't seem to like him either. I wonder what he's done to upset the rest of them. And R. Laura Moore was saying the elephant looks like a giant next to the wildebeest. Well, he pretty much is, R. Laura Moore, but it's nice to get that comparison when the other animals come near to them. It's like when you look at a rugby team or a football team, American football team, and they're all lining up next to each other. You can think, well, these guys are big, but compared to each other, they don't look that big at all. And so it's when you see them next to normal mortals that you actually realize how big they are. So nice to get that comparison. And I often say to the guests as well and viewers, when you get out of a vehicle from having watched animals on a safari, on a game drive, when you get out of the vehicle, suddenly everything looks so much bigger. Even that tiny little warthog or springbok, you realize that it's just comparatively, they seem very small, but they're actually not that small. Looks like some fun times ahead with these youngsters now enjoying the mud. I hope they get stuck in and have a bit of a swim as well. That would be great. So just going back to that age question, elephants grow throughout most of their lives and can usually be aged fairly accurately using their shoulder height or the size of their feet. And especially when you've got them next to each other like this, and then you can comparatively age them as well. However, once they're fully adult, elephants grow more slowly and are therefore harder to precisely age them by size alone. And that's where using elephant teeth is by far a more reliable indicator of their age. But like I say, it's a pretty difficult method to use on live elephants, as you'd have to put your life at risk, and I'm not that sure they'll be that willing to open their mouths up to allow us to see the ridges on their molars. So, and of course, when the elephants cool off, it's normally the first point of attack is getting that mud in behind the ears. That helps them to cool off the quickest. And then getting nicely covered on their sides, on their back, under their bellies, and all the rest. Sometimes even going as far, like these youngsters, and just rolling around in the mud. Seems like they've disturbed a spoonbill stalk off there on the right. But that's okay. It's all in the name of fun. And as we see quite regularly, the breeding herds don't generally stick around as long as the bulls, having more time and spare time for themselves. The breeding herds generally come in, get cooled off, quench their thirsts, and then they move on. And of course you can always have some stragglers, and generally it would be the bulls that stick around and then they catch up with the breeding herd a little bit later on. Maybe not so this time. Just a quick whiz around to see if there's anything else that has showed up. And it seems like the blue wildebeest still relaxing off in the distance. The grey heron here on the bank of the waterhole doesn't look to be too intently fishing for now. Maybe it's had its breakfast and it's nice and full. Right, so a bit quiet here, and the elephants have moved off, so I think we'll do the same, and this time let's go to Kenya and Old Donyo. This waterhole has always got all sorts going on, and here we've got a little squirrel busy in the grass. In the shrubbery. I wonder what he's up to. So this looks to be, if I'm not mistaken, an African striped ground squirrel. You see that lovely white markings around the eye, and then he would normally, if he stands up, I'm sure we'll see that little white stripe down the side of his body. And from Wikipedia, the striped ground squirrel, native to Africa, was first described by Jeff Joffrey in 1803, but the binomial authority is sometimes incorrectly cited as Desmarest, 1817. And there are 6 subspecies. Alright, so nice to see this little ground squirrel, but I think we're going to head on back to town. So the feed there at Old Donyo was just a little bit sketchy, and so that's the reason why we came back to Tau. So if it does improve, we'll head on back, because that was lovely to see that squirrel, and I've got lots of info to share about them. And in the meantime, there's always something happening here at Tau. You see the spur-winged goose going for a nap. The black-winged stilts just relaxing off to the left, and a very busy Egyptian geese on the right-hand side. Okay, so other than the waterfowl, I think it's a little bit quiet here. So let's go back to the Greater Kruger Park, but this time to Naledi Dam. Otherwise known as the ghosts of the bush. Here, a couple of kudu female coming down for a drink. And once again, we can hear the little blue waxbills calling. Beautiful antelope are the kudu. You can see with those disruptive markings, the white stripes down the side of their bodies. Almost like a fallow deer, but we do notice that a lot of the thicket preferring antelope have got these stripes. It sort of breaks out the outline of their bodies. And so it does help to, well, it's an anti-predator sort of evolved behavior of these antelope. So quite nervous of the water because at some of these water holes, I don't think there's any in here. I haven't noticed that there's any, and it's quite shallow, and I don't think there's any crocodiles, but they are crocodile aware. And also going down to the water does put them in harm's way from predators because they've got to put their heads down to drink. So they're not able to see and hear as far as they would normally. And so it's a good opportunity for predators, and that's why the animals are so alert and so aware when they go down to drink. So Mindy Tillapaw was asking, are their numbers doing okay, Ralph? We hardly ever see them here. I think you're talking about the kudu, Mindy, but if you're not, just let me know and we'll chat about that. But, you know, if it was about the elephants in Madikwe, there's they're almost over the carrying capacity, so they're doing very well. The kudu, they're a little bit more shy, and so they prefer to stay in the thickets. And so you might not see them as much, but I tell you, you walk around these parts and you'll find kudu tracks all over the place. So their numbers are absolutely fine. It's just their particular characters and their behavior that doesn't allow us to see them as much, and hence why we also call them the ghosts of the bush. So another thing also to bear in mind with kudu is that they only drink in the normally in the early mornings, late afternoons, but also included with that is their feeding habits, and they do sort of feed on a lot of roots and bulbs that do have a high water content, and they only require sort of between 7 and 9 liters of water a day, which, as I say, generally, especially with kudu, they prefer doing it very early and very late in the day. So that's possibly why we also don't see them very much as we watch sort of in the middle part of the day, where it's generally the likes of elephants that come to get their water intake. So just having a bit of a look at the trees of the area. I think that one in the background could be a leadwood. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't see perfectly. This one in the foreground I think might be a weeping boerbean. There's nice darker leaves on it. Either that or gardenia. I can't really see the detail very well in terms of the leaves. Yeah, over on the right, is it possibly a tamboti? Looks like it could be, with that very sort of scaly bark that they have on the trunks, almost like a crocodile in terms of the bark on a tamboti. And also just checking about, you never know what might be lurking. There's a couple of birds in the tree there. I think there might be a hornbill or something else. But you never know when a leopard's lying up in one of them. So always worth a look. Okay, so there's no spots or legs in this tree, unfortunately. So I think let's head on back to Tau. Still with a nice big herd of blue wildebeest now, or the brindled gnu. And there seems to be all ages here. There's little youngsters with tiny little horns just poking out, and then fully grown adults as well. So now that we're watching these blue wildebeest and a nice big herd of them, not everybody knows lots about blue wildebeest, especially for any new viewers and for those international viewers as well from abroad. This is from the Ingwalala website, and they say the blue wildebeest, or Conochetus taurinus, is an antelope that needs little introduction to wildlife enthusiasts. Sometimes called also the common wildebeest or the brindled gnu. There's two species of wildebeest, the blue wildebeest, which is the most common and that we see here, and the black wildebeest, which is the Conochetus gnu, which occurs in isolated pockets, is actually quite rare. You get them down in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. But both species belong to the family Bovidae, and there's 5 subspecies of Conochetus taurinus. The common names are blue wildebeest, eastern white bearded wildebeest, the western white bearded wildebeest, Nyasaland wildebeest, and the Cookson's wildebeest. They are large antelope, they're ruminants, and they have cloven hooves. Both genders have horns, and the male's horns are larger than the female. It's pretty much the only difference, as well as their bodies as well. The forequarters are well built compared to the slimmer hindquarters, and this does assist in their sort of migratory habits. The adult coats have a blue sheen to them, thereby giving them the name blue wildebeest. The shoulder height is around 125 centimeters, and the average weight is around 200 kilograms. And you think when some of the largest humans alive are sort of sportsmen of around 150, 160 kilograms, those are massive humans, and the average size or weight of a blue wildebeest is 200 kilos. So that also does then just give you a comparison, as I was speaking earlier. Sexual maturity commences around 2 years of age in the males, whereas the females may conceive as early as 1.5 years if felt condition is above average. The blue wildebeest are seasonal breeders, meaning there's a rut or a mating season, and females give birth all about the same time over a 2 to 3 week period. So that's why very often you see all the babies of the same age. Males challenge each other for territorial dominance through horn clashing and fighting. Gestation is approximately 8.5 months. Thereafter, normally, a single calf is born. Calves are born with a tan color and adopt the darker adult color at a few months of age. So you can also tell their age, or if they're still very young, by that fawny color of them. And the calves can run only minutes after being born, an essential trait to avoid predation. So blue wildebeest are grazers enjoying short grass, and in the world of ecology rated as concentrate grazers or feeders. They're also known as selective grazers. The water is a dietary essential for blue wildebeest. They need to drink almost daily, being very water dependent. So that's why we often find them here on a daily basis as well. It's not uncommon to find blue wildebeest in the company of zebra, in a phenomenon known as succession grazing. Zebras are coarse grass grazers or bulk grazers. By eating the taller and coarser grasses, they pave the way for blue wildebeest to eat the shorter grasses, who are more selective. The zebra have excellent eyesight, which is an anti-predator, and which blue wildebeest benefit from through early detection signs. Forming large herds is another anti-predator trait. The waterholes are also common areas where you may find these two species milling together. We often see them doing that here at Tau. Blue wildebeest are renowned for their migratory behavior, especially in the world-famous Serengeti and the Masai Mara, where they brave crocodiles-infested waters, forced to swim through these treacherous paths, clambering up steep, slippery banks to continue their search for better grazing. Diseases that can affect blue wildebeest are sarcoptic mange, anthrax, foot and mouth, and hoof gangrene. The IUCN classification for blue wildebeest is currently least concern due to their significant numbers in the wild, where population trends are considered stable. So just some facts on them as well. At full speed, they can run at as fast as 65 kilometers an hour. The horns of adult males are noticeably embossed, so a little bit similar to buffalo. Migration is often in single file. I think that's just due to the path of least resistance and making it easier for them, but it is a trait of theirs. Territorial marking by the bulls includes a secretion from preorbital and interdigital glands. And this is often why, so the preorbital glands, that's around the face, and often why you see them sort of horning the ground and rubbing their face on the ground as well. And then they also hoof the ground, getting that scent from their gland between their hoofs onto the spot too, especially the territorial males. You see them doing this a lot. Fertility in the cows is very high, and its genetic name, Connochetus, in Greek, describes its beard and hair mane. Both of the genders do have manes, and the blue and black wildebeest have been known to mate and hybridize. So it's actually illegal to keep blue wildebeest and black wildebeest together on a game farm because it does water down their genetic diversity. So normally just positioning isolates the black wildebeest away from the blue wildebeest, but obviously humans, we can move them around, but it's not allowed. You're not allowed to have them together. Adult males are darker in appearance than the females, and they're active mostly in the early morning and late afternoon. As you can see here, around the mid parts of the day, this is generally time to lie about, ruminate, and not much else. So Amy was asking, are there any endangered trees in the area? And it's funny that you ask that, Amy, because Tau, the lodge, actually has the Tau Tree Fund. And according to them and from their website, the Tau Tree Fund is aimed at giving guests an opportunity to contribute back to the environment when you stay at the lodge in Madikwe. And with trees nowadays being a precious, renewable, natural resource, it has become of growing importance to plant more indigenous trees, especially the more endangered trees, such as the marula or the Sclerocarya berea, subspecies Caffra. And we have also managed to acquire 8 bushveld red balloon trees, or the Erythrophysa transvalensis. These trees are extremely rare, and less than 50 of them are known of in the greater Madikwe area. So far, Tau have planted over 50 trees in and around the Tau Lodge area. With the ever-growing pressure that is put on the environment by man and domestic and wild animals, it's essential that we start making a concerted effort to conserve our natural surroundings. And the Tau Tree Fund was started to allow visitors to the Tau Game Lodge the opportunity to plant protected tree species and to learn a little bit about the trees that they are planting. And information supplied to the guests includes the medicinal purposes, African folklore, natural habitat, ecology, animal and plant relationships, etc., of their chosen tree. So there's two. The marula, it's particularly used for, especially the big ones are cut down for making makoros or canoes. And so obviously they're quite slow growing as well. So it takes a long time for them to get to that size. And as a result, they've actually started protecting them. And also there's been quite a few projects around using fiberglass to build these canoes as well. So most of the sort of Botswana lodges that you go to now, they'll have a mix of the old wooden canoes, but they also now, all the newer ones are made out of fiberglass, and in so doing helping to protect the likes of marulas too. And then the other one, that one extremely rare, being the bushveld red balloon tree, or the Erythrophysa transvalensis. So nice time spent with these blue wildebeest and getting through all their facts and figures. But I think it's time to take another chance, and let's go back to old Daniel. We've got another nice big elephant bull, and he's been joined by some impala off there in the background. Now, continuing on my discussion about elephants, from the Siyabona Africa website, and they say that previous studies suggested that the larger the animal, the less selective it might be in its diet, due to lower nutrient requirements per unit of body mass. An African elephant, Loxodonta africana, is quite picky when it comes to eating. A study of this mega herbivore's dietary habits reveals this mammal does not eat just anything, despite its large size and fast operating digestive system. An adult elephant can consume up to 136 kilograms or 300 pounds of a combination of roots, grasses, fruits and bark per day. The large physical being of these herbivores allows and requires them to eat large amounts of food, as their bodies only process about 40% of what they eat, leaving the other 60% undigested. An article in an issue of Journal of Mammalogy describes research led by Norman Owen Smith and Jonas Chafota in the Kalahari Sandveld region of the Chobe National Park of Botswana. They looked at the dietary patterns of 80,000 elephants, what plants these animals select, what parts of a plant they consume, and how their choices vary with seasonal changes. Previous studies suggested that the larger the animal, the less selective it might be in its diet, due to lower nutrient requirements per unit of body mass. Accordingly, a large animal would be more capable than a smaller one of digesting high fiber content and potentially toxic chemical contents of some plants. Thus, the African elephant, the largest extant herbivore, should be willing and able to consume a broad variety of plant species. While its size and hindgut digestion do enable the African elephant to exploit a large assortment of plants, it seems to occupy a rather distinct niche from other animals in its actual choices. During the wet season, elephants found only 30% of the woody species available for consumption palatable. In the hot, dry season, this increases to 50%. While the elephant might eat shoots and leaves during the wet season, it prefers stem, bark, and roots, making up 50% of its diet in the cool, dry season, and increasing to 94% of its consumption in the hot, dry season. So it's not so much the choice of plant species that separates the elephant from other animals, but the selection of plant parts. The African elephant concentrates on the bark, stem, and roots rather than foliage or fruit of plants. These choices reduce the elephant's overlap of food selection with other animals. Accordingly, elephants occupy a dietary niche distinct from browsing or grazing ruminants. And although commonly classified as mixed feeders along the grass-browse continuum, savanna-inhabiting elephants are distinct from all coexisting ruminants in their dependence on bark, twigs, and roots, rather than foliage or fruits during lean times in the seasonal cycle. In this feature, their digestive strategy resembles that of rodents, in fact, and lagomorphs, also adapted through hindgut digestion to tolerate high dietary fiber contents, rather than grazing or browsing ruminants depending more narrowly on foliage. So the findings reinforce Jarman's of 1974 contention that niche separation among large mammalian herbivores is governed more fundamentally by differential use of plant parts than by distinctions in the plant species utilized. Right, so nice stop in here with this elephant bull, but I think we're going to change of place entirely, and let's go down to almost the tip of Africa and Stony Point. Where we can see one of the elephant's closest relative, and that of the diminutive little rock hyrax, off on the left-hand side. Doesn't look like there's any penguins about for today. Maybe they're all out hunting. loving it, sunning themselves out here on the rocks. So a little bit of info on them, and this coming from the San Diego Zoo. Speaking of the little brother of the elephant, what is one of the closest living relatives of the elephant? If you said the manatee or dugong, which are both marine mammals, you would be correct. There's another family member that is often forgotten, the hyrax. What we're looking at might look a bit like a large guinea pig or rabbit with very short ears, but the hyrax is neither. Instead, the hyrax has similar teeth, toes, and skull structures to that of an elephant's. More importantly, the hyrax shares an ancestor with the elephants as well. The hyrax's strong molars grind up tough vegetation, and two large incisor teeth grow out to be tiny tusks, just like elephants. And there's three members of the Procavidae or hyrax family: the rock hyrax, the tree hyrax, and the bush or yellow spotted hyrax. The rock hyrax is covered in short brown fur with a lighter underbelly. There are extra long hairs that stick out around the body called guard hairs to help the hyrax feel its way around, the same way a cat uses its whiskers. The hyrax has short legs and rounded toes with a long nail called a grooming claw on the inner toe of the back foot that is used for picking through hair and scratching an itch. A scent gland on its back, called a dorsal gland, is covered with longer black hairs, and the gland is used to mark rocks or trees to communicate with other hyraxes. And a male's hyrax's nose is larger than the female's. That's one way of telling them apart. All hyraxes have a special eyelid called a nictitating membrane for sun and dust protection, and a bulge in each iris acts as a built-in sun visor. All very, very interesting. And life on the rocks. All hyrax live throughout most of Africa, but rock hyraxes are also found along the coast of the Arabian Peninsula, up to Lebanon. As the name implies, they hang out in areas where there are boulders, rock formations, or even little nooks on sheer cliffs that provide shelter and protection. Their homes are easy to identify as hyrax abodes, as rocks hyrax urine crystallizes and looks like white patches on the rocks. Their feet are built for rock climbing. The foot is bare and has a moist rubbery pad that lifts up in the center for a suction cup effect to help the hyrax cling to the rocks and other smooth surfaces without slipping. They can even chimney up and down tight spaces. They live up to the expression safety in numbers. They may live in colonies of up to 50 individuals, sharing sleeping areas and looking for food together. Each day starts with a group sunbathing session for several hours. Looks like this one has continued through to midday. Once warmed up, they head out for a short period of feeding. But they do not like cool or rainy weather and won't even come out of their rock shelter if the weather is not to their liking. A little bit like me. Although diurnal, they may venture out on moonlit nights. They spend most of the time, however, doing nothing. Only about 5% of their time is spent in active pursuits. In some parts of Africa, bush hyraxes often live in the same rocky areas as rock hyraxes. They have a 3-chambered stomach with bacteria to help digest the plants that they eat. During the wet season, rock hyraxes eat mostly grass, but when the grass dries, they switch to browse material, i.e. fruit and leaves. They feed in a circle formation with their head pointing to the outside of the circle to keep an eye out for predators such as leopards, hyenas, jackals, servals, python, Verreaux's eagle owl, and the black eagle, as well as the crowned eagle, are hyrax specialists. But with their excellent vision, they can spot a predator over 1,000 yards or 900 meters away. And during each feeding period, the dominant male pauses between bites to watch for danger, and he sounds a shriek alarm if he sees anything of concern, which sends all the hyrax scrambling for cover, where they remain absolutely still until they think the danger is past. And if needed, a hyrax can wedge itself backward between rocks and bite savagely at the intruder with its long, sharp incisors. And you see that very strange foot structure for an animal of this size and liking, in my mind anyway. So quite similar to elephants as well is that female rock hyraxes stay with their family for life. There's one male for every 5 to 7 females that patrol a certain territory within its colony. And when the babies, called pups, are born, usually around the same time once each year, the entire colony greets and sniffs the young ones. The pups are amazingly precocial, born with their eyes and ears open. They look like miniature adults and have the same luxuriant coat. So a couple of questions come in, and one from Oliver asking, what is it that makes dassies and elephants to be relatives? Well, you know the saying, Oliver, that you can't choose your family. So it's not a choice that was made at all. It was obviously they both descend from the same relative. So they've evolved over the millennia to be obviously completely different. But the characteristics that allow the scientists to believe that they are descendant from the same relative is in accordance with a lot of similar characteristics, such as a similar foot structure, a similar placenta, a similar dental structure, as we've discussed. They even grow little tusks, and they walk on the same part of the foot. So they've all sort of taken it back, as well as the dugong and the manatees, to this same relative, and them all having these characteristics that allow them to believe that they've come from that particular spot. But it's obviously taken a very long time, which is the definition of evolution as well. It's change over time that has then produced these very different looking species, but all descendants from the same place. Now, a couple of fun facts as well about dassies is that millions of years ago, hyraxes were one of the most important herbivores around and were the size of today's tapirs. Now, those goat-like mammals with a sort of very curled horns. Looks like we've got a rockagame here just running through as well. And hyraxes are called conies in the Bible. And they were first scientifically described in 1766. And adult hyraxes, as we see here, are inactive 95% of the time. I know a few people like that. And then Nikita Hutt, who's a new member, welcome aboard Nikita, was asking, Ralph, what in your opinion is the most endangered mammal in this area and to look out for on the cams? Now, Nikita, if you're able to look at the cams, especially during the night, I would say, and the animals that I look for, particularly because across a lot of these locations, there is quite a high concentration of large predators, i.e. lions, leopards, cheetah, wild dogs. And so for me, I get really excited when I see small predators, the likes of black-footed cats, African wildcats, even caracal, serval, and all of those more diminutive predators that obviously find life very difficult where there's a high concentration of big predators. And so they're very secretive, and you don't really get to see them very often. So those are the ones that I get excited about, and I would say those are the ones that you should look out for across all the different locations in the cameras. During the middle of the day, we don't really get to see those kind of more secretive animals that would, come through in the darkness of night, and sometimes at 3 or 4 in the morning. So not always easy to be able to see them, although we do at least sometimes have the highlights on Live at the Waterhole as well, so we can show you what's happened overnight. But depending on where you are in the world, during the day you might be watching the cameras during the night, and those are the periods, I would say, from about 11 o'clock at night till about 3, 4 in the morning are the most productive for those unusual and rare sightings. So Ray Hubert was asking, what is the gestation period of a dassie? So Ray, they have a 7 to 8 month gestation period, and they have 1 to 4 babies after that 7 to 8 months, and it takes them about 16 to 18 months to reach maturity. They can live for up to about 5 years as well, so it's a reasonable age for such a little creature. They get to about 60 centimeters in length and about 20 to 30 centimeters at the shoulder. They weigh up to about 5.5 kilograms. As we can see those real big kelp forests off there in the background. So, and with the kelp forests there in the background, those seem to be kelp gulls, and there was a Cape cormorant as well. A little bit of clouds about here in this area of the Cape. But with the low clouds there, I would say that there's probably not that much wind. So the Cape Doctor not working today. And for me, in this part of the country, it doesn't matter what the sort of rain is doing, as long as there is no wind, it's a lovely day. Got a real little comical look to the face of these hyrax. I always find them intriguing. So absolutely no penguins about. I think that must be good fishing today, and so they're making the most of it. All right, so lovely time here at Stony Point with these very calm and collected and relaxing dassies. I had some fun facts on them as well. But I think we need to change of place, and this time we're going to go to KwaZulu-Natal province and Tembe Elephant Park. Where we have a lovely sight. A couple of ellies joined by a nice journey of giraffe. Southern giraffe, so different to what we'll see in Kenya, and also different to the Angolan or Damara giraffe that we see in Etosha in Namibia. So a couple of bull elephants. They seem to be youngsters, so having a bit of playtime, wrestling. Looks like the giraffe might also partake in a bit of necking and fighting between the bulls off there on the right. Couple of little warthogs there, probably going to get chased off by the elephant. Oh no, he's stopping now. I'm going to have a drink, I think. Oh, hello, and even a bigger one arriving. He looks like he might have some of the big Tusker genetics in him. So Lola was asking, since elephants and giraffe both have infrasound, can they communicate to each other? So Lola, I'm not quite sure if they're able to understand each other. They probably can hear each other, but maybe it's a little bit like speaking a different language. So I'll dig into it and see if there is any sort of evidence of elephant and giraffe communicating with each other verbally or through infrasound. But my initial sort of reaction is that I wouldn't think so, but you never can tell. Maybe they've evolved next to each other, living in the same environment for so long that maybe there are cues that they can pick up from the different infrasound noises that they make. But it's an interesting one, and I wonder if they can sort of speak on the right hertz, as less than 20 hertz, I think it is, the very low frequency. But I'll do a bit of digging and see if I can get anything more for you. So Lola, it doesn't seem like there's too much evidence-based facts about elephants actually communicating with giraffe or the reverse. But I would unequivocally state that I'm sure that there are noises that both of them make that they can identify with each other with regards to reactions to what's happening in the bush, because pretty much that's everything in terms of their survival, both as the individual and of the species. They need to get their requirements, food and water, and they need to reproduce. And they also need to evade predators and stay alive. So I think in that essence, elephants and giraffes share a common purpose in evading predators. Elephants obviously being a lot more boisterous, they're much bigger, their character is a lot more aggressive when confronted with predators. So they'll make a lot of noise that I'm sure even the noises that we cannot hear, the giraffe will be able to identify as a reaction to danger. And they'll probably react to it as well. And I think in the reverse will be significant too, where a giraffe maybe makes infrasound noises as a result of danger, generally from predators, that elephants would also be able to react to and recognize as potential danger. But I think how far it goes past that, I'm not quite sure, because those are the things that they obviously use as additions to their own reactions to predators and anti-predator behavior. They listen out and understand the behavior of the other animals as an early warning sign for predators as well. And that includes verbal, and in this case, the infrasound could potentially warn both ways of elephants and giraffe when it comes to danger. Because everything else, I don't think that they're too worried about. With if the giraffe are communicating within their own social structure about mating and dominance and so on, elephants don't really take any interest. But when that particular noise comes that equals danger, I think they'd both react to it. So I think to a level they'd be able to communicate with each other, but I don't think it would be a two-way thing. I think it would just be a reaction to the noise as a reaction to the danger. So I think in my mind that's where it ends. But the simple answer then, Lola, to your question is they can communicate to each other, but I think only in a one-way stream. I don't think they can have a conversation. I just think one would understand the other one, especially when it comes to what I've spoken about. So Marinda was asking, would elephant eat the hyacinth in the water or that plant in the water if it is not hyacinth? Marinda, I'm not sure if this is hyacinth. It does seem to be like what they call the water salad or water lettuce, more so than the hyacinth. I have seen elephants eating hyacinth, and there's those bulbs that they get on it. But this one here, I'm sure they could and they would. But I don't know how nutritious this stuff is. It looks like a different species. It's quite interesting. Maybe we need to get a few herds of elephants to go and help with the hyacinth problem in Hartbeespoort Dam and in the Vaal River. They could eat a lot of that. But I don't know what the residents would do along the banks there with the herds of elephants coming through. I'm sure they'd love it. But yeah. That's a real problem with hyacinth clogging up river systems and water bodies in South Africa. Really bad, especially where you have organic pollution such as sewage. And it's, I think, a real indicator of the quality of our water bodies in South Africa. What a shame. See the giraffe running around there in the background. They're all getting together now. So Soul loves nature, saying that one giraffe looks quite pale. Yeah, Soul giraffes, they'll all have a slightly different coloration. No two giraffe will be exactly the same. And, you know, in general, they are lighter when they're younger and they darken as they age. So maybe it's a little bit of a younger one. But you can also have adults that even though they're darker, they're still lighter than their siblings, or even their others in the species and in the area. So it can be multiple factors, but I would suggest that maybe it's a bit of a younger one and he hasn't quite darkened up just yet. So it does seem to be all bulls, so a bit of a bachelor herd. And they may all be sort of just jostling for a bit of dominance. Now, there's one individual, look, he seems to want to try and drink from that hole. He's got to go down even further than usual. Shame. Looks like he's gotten there, though. Well done, chap. So Shiv was asking, what predators do they have in Tembe? So this is a big 5 reserve, so they will have leopard and lion. They also do have wild dogs. And then I think they will have jackals, cheetah, and also the smaller ones like caracal, definitely. Maybe some of the smaller cats as well. But yeah, they've got a good, healthy predator population here in the Tembe Elephant Park. So I thought the giraffe were going to get down to a bit of necking and have a bit of a fight, but it seems to have petered out, and they've all split up. Now these warthogs just having and enjoying a graze. Well, these warthogs do look happy. I think they've been for a bit of a mud wallow. And you can see the wetness even on the top of the head. And now enjoying a lovely graze. See why they call them warthogs? Those big warts or wart-like structures coming out of the side of the face. 2 sets of warts on either side of the face on males, and only 1 set of warts. So the males have got 4 warts in total, and the females have only got 2. And then the obvious apricots at the back of the males, as you can see there. So this very clearly a male. Shame, he's got a bit of an itch there. He's probably got ticks and fleas and all sorts going on there, making him itchy. That's one of the reasons why they do wallow. It does help to get rid of those parasites, especially afterwards, once the mud is caked, and then they go and scratch on a nice rubbing post. This tree here in the foreground, I'm sure would make a good one, but they often find a rock or a termite mound or a tree stump or whatever it is, and they go and scratch themselves on it. I think they enjoy it, and it does have the double whammy of getting rid of those pesky parasites. This is quite a big warthog, male, and he seems to be quite old as well. The old battle axe. So Nina Brown was asking, do warthogs ever get into serious fights? Nina, I have seen quite a number of fights with warthogs. But I wouldn't say that it happens regularly. And I have seen some serious fights with big old males like this one. They do pair. They are monogamous, so they take on a mate. But they will fight with, it's mainly the males, as per all the species, just about, that get into fights and fight for dominance, fight for mating rights, fight for territories and all that. And yeah, I've seen a few, and it's almost like two miniature rhinos going at each other. And it has the similar sort of technique where they go at each other head to head, and they try and sort of get the one to, with its head, they push the other one's head to the side, and they try to get in under or into the stomach area with those tusks. So that's, from my experience, what I've seen, the way that they fight. And it can be quite serious, but it generally just results in one of them, accepting defeat and running off. I think it's just because they're so small that they don't have the obvious seriousness as the likes of rhino do. I've seen black rhino fight to the death. I've also seen white rhino have real big differences in fighting. So those, I think black rhino, probably one of the most impressive. Elephants, obviously hard to top that. So in the sort of worst or most dangerous or serious fights, I would definitely have to say elephants, but I would say that black rhino aren't far behind. So here we've got another warthog, and you can see another two sets of warts on either side of the head. So it's another male. And he's got the beard to prove it as well. And a comment coming in from Casper. Wow, thank you again, WildEarth and Ralph, for a knowledge-filled waterhole show. Here we learn many new things each day. I'm glad that I was able to impart some knowledge there, Casper, and that you enjoyed the show, and that you joined us and you sent us through your comments. It's always a pleasure. Lovely getting the interaction from the viewers. So, folks, I'll be back again tomorrow. So please think of any other questions and comments that you might have to get involved and to get me going down those rabbit holes, because we're just about at the end of the show. And when we do get to this point, I have to always say thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks to the wildlife for being the stars of the show. And, of course, to the whole WildEarth team for making it all possible. And then, of course, don't forget that later on there will be the Sunset Safari. So don't go anywhere. Lots more wildlife action coming your way. And at least the sun's out now in KwaZulu-Natal. There's still lots of clouds about, but no rain for now, and it does seem to be warming up. We are slowly heading into winter, so the temperatures are going to drop. They don't really feel it that much in the KwaZulu-Natal province. It cools off a little bit, but it's not that bad. Nice change of season nonetheless. Anyway, that's it from me for now, folks. Give it horns. Bush greet.
Well, a very good afternoon to everybody. Thank you once again for joining us on our highlight show. And yes, my name is Cedric, and behind the camera with me, we've got Panda, and we are coming directly from Djuma Private Game Reserve here in the northern Sabi Sands. Yes, so in the next half an hour, we will be discussing exactly what we've been seeing over the last 24 hours, and there has been some amazing highlights from the last 24 hours, so I'm hoping that we can show you some amazing footage. Well, this is On Safari.